And speaking of that, one of the other topics I was going to ask you about, which kind of is, I won't say it's completely your niche, but you definitely have a large presence in this area, is kind of riding later in life, as you had just mentioned. You're kind of unapologetic about your age and everything that's
Yep.
happened to you, and now you have
Yep.
to deal with this with maybe physical limitations or whatever.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
why don't you talk about that a little bit?
I was 42 years old. I had just ridden in a side saddle race, had won it. The next day I was teaching 4-H and I was hauling 4 horses and my daughter down a icy road, black ice road with rain. We'd been weaning all week. I couldn't pull my boots on or buckle my spurs. I had a really hard time getting onto my horse, even climbing up the rail fence. My daughter, as we're hauling the horses into 4-H, had to keep putting my hands back up on the steering wheel. And what I didn't realize is I was having a stroke. And most people would say, well, duh, and that would be right. But rural people, it is frowned on sometimes if you pay attention to how you're feeling. You push on and you can get a lot done with that mentality, but eventually your body will say enough, right? So I ended up having a stroke, ended up in at the stroke unit in the city and all sorts of little stories. But the long and the short of it is I survived. I was sent home and I went through a really deep, dark place. Um, we sold my antiques business that I had. My license was revoked, so I couldn't drive. I couldn't swallow. One eye was closed, my whole face was down, and I just kind of fell off the turnip cart of life. And I was done riding, obviously. If you can't keep your eye open and swallow, you have no business being on a horse, or so I thought. And my husband said to me in one of his brighter moments, he said, well, what are you going to do with your life now that it's like in front of you like this? And I was boo-hooing, and it had been quite a nasty session of me feeling sorry for myself. And I said, I really wanted to not be doing all the other little things that I'd done to try to pay bills. I drove school bus for 18 years. I had an antique shop. I worked as a cook in this cookhouse. I said, I just want to do the horses. I'll ride horses. I'll teach people. I'll sell horses. And that was my incentive to get a little better. It was a long, long go. And as I dealt with certain things, I dealt with things like vertigo. I dealt with things like fear. I was sick. I had not been hurt on a horse, Daniel, but I was scared to get on that horse. The first time I rode, and it was just a absolute canner of a 4-year-old. I have no idea why I was riding him. I hauled him down the highway to ride with a person who still I consider a mentor. Vance Cagley, if you're listening, thank you. I didn't have my license yet and had this nutty horse with me. I was shaking getting on that horse. The horse hadn't hurt me, but he did kind of open up all the problems I was having in my life and the doubts. I'd never had a body that let me down like that before. So long and short of it is a lot of this stuff, Daniel, made me learn to have a little more empathy when I'm dealing with people. I learned that we can get over a lot of stuff if we have the right people supporting us and if we have the right horses, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to, that's kind of the horses I sell and ride now. I keep my horses far longer than is financially viable because I'm turning out horses that I hope will have the ability to be forgiving with a lot of people. And some, as you know, have more of a talent with that than others. But my illness, my aging, my struggles have all really shaped who I am today.
There's the scars in the saddle, the wear and tear on The
Yeah,
leathers, the fenders, the jockeys. Yes, ma'am.
yeah.